Hi guys, this is Jawad Kazi and today we are going to discuss the Surrogacy Bill 2016 which is in news right now as part of our UPSC current affairs series that we are doing. To start with, let us start with the core concept. What is meant by surrogacy? Friends, surrogacy basically means to bear a child for another couple. Okay, so a woman volunteers to bear a child for another couple, and that in medical parlance or reproductive parlance is called as surrogacy. Now that could arise out of various reasons. There can be some medical complications such as malformation of the womb, failure of in vitro fertilization, multiple miscarriages, so on and so forth, which may compel the couple or the woman in particular to go for a surrogacy. But it is not limited to medical complications alone. It could be because of same-sex couples or women who don't want to get pregnant for various sort of reasons such as health, career, appearance, so on and so forth. So out of all these reasons, surrogacy has become an option the world over. Basically, it is of two types. The first type is called as full surrogacy, or it is also known as host or gestational surrogacy. In this type, the gametes of the couple are fertilized, and then it is transplanted. The embryo is transplanted into the surrogate woman, so she is not genetically contributing to the child as such. Then the second type is called as the partial surrogacy, or it is also known by other names such as straight or traditional surrogacy. In this case, the male gamete is fertilized with the female gamete of the surrogate woman. Okay, so in this particular case, she is contributing genetically to the child that will be born. While surrogacy is on the rise world over, India has emerged as a very big hub for what is also referred to as reproductive tourism, and surrogacy is a very significant part of it. It is believed that every year 2,000 infertile couples, go for surrogacy services in the country, and that not only includes Indians but also many foreigners. Typically, it is believed that about 20% of these couples, of the total number, are actually foreigners, and the huge scale of this industry can be visualized from the revenue that is generated out of that. Okay, so it is to the tune of $400 million. So it's a very big industry, and various sort of epithets are used for this industry. For example, rent a womb service, baby farming, या फिर reproductive tourism, or in epithets in words आपको एक चीज़ you can infer, and that is that there's a bit of dehumanization that has happened in this particular field. It particularly became very popular world over as well as in India after some celebrities went for surrogacy for giving birth. Very famous examples could be Amir Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, Sohail Khan, it seems, has also gone for that. And internationally also, many celebrities such as Ricky Martin, Elton John, Nicole Kidman, Cristiano Ronaldo, so many such celebrities internationally also went for a surrogacy option, and that has also contributed to make it popular. But in recent times, there have been many cases of exploitation of the surrogate women, and there were many ethical dilemmas that were involved over there, and that is why the Law Commission, in its 228th report, has come down very strongly on this particular you can say practice, and it has suggested to put a sort of a blanket ban on this activity. While surrogacy can be dated internationally to mid-80s, in India it started sometime in the early 90s, and especially after 2002, this particular option of reproduction has really become very popular in the country. And the reason why India has emerged as such a big hub is first and foremost the low cost of services that one incurs while going for surrogacy in the country. Vis-a-vis other countries, developed as well as developing countries, the cost of commissioning the service in India is relatively lower. Then the strong health related infrastructure as far as various assisted reproductive technologies are concerned is relatively very good in India, and that also attracts a lot of couples from abroad to go for surrogacy in the country. Of course, there are very good skilled medical professionals who are available in the country, and sadly we do not have a very strong regulatory, or at least thus far we did not have a very strong regulatory environment in this particular area, and that also contributed in giving a boost to this industry. And lastly, and most unfortunately, there's a huge number of destitute women in the country who are actually willing to take up surrogacy as a means of livelihood. And typically these women come from disadvantaged sections of the society, That is why they are in an asymmetric position while negotiating contracts, and that actually renders them very vulnerable to exploitation. Surrogacy is in news right now because of the Surrogacy Regulation Bill 2016, which has been recently cleared by the Cabinet, and government has asked suggestions from all the stakeholders on the same. Now, this bill is actually very different from what we were seeing earlier, and it allows only Indian couples who cannot have children by natural methods or by the various assisted reproductive technologies that are available. So that is, they are infertile, and only such Indian married couples who have been married for at least 5 years can go for surrogacy. So you can see it really restricts or constricts the scope of such people who can go for surrogacy. Moreover, only altruistic surrogacy is allowed. Okay, so surrogacy cannot be a commercial surrogacy. There cannot be an exchange of consideration for a surrogate woman, and it has to be completely altruistic as such. Further, there are age-related restrictions on such couples who can go for surrogacy, but an exception has been made for such couples who have a biological child who is mentally or physically challenged. Then in that case, such a couple can go for surrogacy. The bill further lays certain conditions as to who can become a surrogate woman. And very significantly, the bill says that only a close relative of the intending couple can become a surrogate woman. She has to belong to a particular age group, and she can do it only once in her lifetime. So she can become a surrogate woman only once in her entire lifetime. Consequent to these provisions, a huge number of people or sections of the population are left out. Overseas Indians, and then non-resident Indians, foreigners, unmarried couples, single parents, live-in partners, homosexual couples, all these people can henceforth not go for surrogacy if the bill is passed in this form. Further, it also provides for a central and state surrogacy board for the implementation of the provisions of this particular bill. The strong measures of the bill are actually not without a reason. There have been many cases where there have been deaths of surrogates because of lack of pre and postnatal care. Further, as I said, the surrogate woman is never in a position to negotiate the contracts. Various risks, whether they are medical, financial, and psychological, have been passed on to the surrogate woman. Also, the issue of the child who is born is also significant. Very often babies were disowned by couples because the baby had some congenital diseases or it was an unplanned twins, so on and so forth. And some unethical and risky practices also have been reported in this field. For example, planting of multiple embryos or giving various hormonal injections, and these things can be very risky for the life and health of the surrogate woman. Further, there are some cultural reasons also which weaken the case for surrogacy. For example, in case of India, the womb has a very sacred sanctity, and the entire domain of surrogacy, commercial surrogacy in particular, actually tends to reduce that sanctity. It tends to undermine that significance or importance which the Indian culture attaches to it. Next, the Indian society also believes in a sacred role of the mother, her important role in developing of the child. But the surrogacy, as we see it today in its commercial form, actually undermines that role and actually sends a subtle message that the role of the woman who gives birth is basically a biological role as such, and it does not have spiritual or social meaning attached to it. Then there is also the concern that very often the contracting parents are from foreign countries, and their genes and Indian women's health and all these things can create certain health-related hazards for the surrogate woman. Further, this entire area of surrogacy is very inherently difficult to regulate, and consequently it is very vulnerable to exploitation. So even if we try to have certain rules and laws, it will be very difficult to enforce it as such. Internationally, the trend is very disparate. Some countries allow, for example, Russia, Ukraine, and some of the states in US allow commercial surrogacy, while France and Germany have completely banned it. UK has gone for a golden mean in between and recognizes non-commercial surrogacy as such. And these complications can create problems for the government of India also, as it was seen in the case of baby Manji case of Japan or the Balas twins case. So the government's rationale behind the strong provisions of this bill are to first of all prevent the exploitation of Indian women, to protect the rights of the child who is born and ensuring the health of the surrogate woman who has, in many cases been exploited. And consequently, the punishment provisions that are there in the bill are very strong by, India's punitive standards. And also, government wants to encourage the option of adoption, which actually is like a golden mean. The family as well as the, adopted child can have a good future. The strong provisions of the bill have been criticized by various stakeholders, and now let us see what is the criticism on the bill. People argue, or activists argue, that this may actually push surrogacy underground and that will actually make it difficult to regulate. Further, it is also violative of the Article 14 as well as Article 21 of the Constitution, which are fundamental rights in Part 3 of the Constitution. Article 14 talks about right to equality. Here, since a particular category only is being allowed to exercise the option of surrogacy, so it violates the right to equality of others. And Article 21 guarantees right to livelihood as well as privacy, and that seems to be violated by this particular bill as such. Then it also takes away reproductive autonomy of people, which was dealt with in the Parthasastri versus Andhra Pradesh case. Further, the criticism that is levied is that state cannot restrict the right to parentage, because right to parentage or reproductive rights are a part of basic human rights, and Amnesty International in fact has associated 12 basic human rights with the right to reproduction. Further, it will deprive the destitute surrogate women for whom surrogacy was actually a source of income, and it is actually economic circumstances and failure of state in part which has compelled them to go to that level of practicing surrogacy, and by depriving them that, it will also deprive them of a source of income. Further, this particular provision of close family surrogacy is also being criticized. It can create future social conflicts because the surrogate woman will always have a psychological or emotional sort of a bonding with the surrogate child, and that can create social conflicts in the family. Further, it puts a strong limitations on those who don't have such family members or who don't have big families. With the rising urbanization, families are only becoming smaller and smaller and more nuclear, and that can potentially be a disadvantage for such families. And getting an altruistic surrogate also is very difficult in the family, because the sort of society that we live in, it can be very difficult to convince a woman in the family itself, furthermore, to go for surrogacy option. It may also result in a case where women will be compelled within the family to undergo surrogacy and violate their right to choice whether they vote, they should or they shouldn't. And this bill also doesn't recognize the work of a surrogate as a labor. While undergoing surrogacy, there's a huge time period during which she cannot work, and there's an opportunity cost which she's incurring, and the bill doesn't seem to factor in that thing when it does not allow commercial surrogacy. Further, the surrogate woman also has a right to choice and right on her own body, which is also part of the basic human right. The next thing is that even if altruistic surrogacy is allowed, it would be difficult to monitor and implement it. Okay, so when a surrogacy is being commissioned, then it is impossible to verify whether there is any exchange of money in the process. Lastly, the priority given to only one type of couples, neglects others such as NRIs and PIOs, as well as categories like live-in partners who have been recognized by the Supreme Court. Okay, when we are allowing adoptions by NRIs and PIOs, it doesn't make logic when NRIs and PIOs are excluded from surrogacy. It will also result into creation of surrogacy havens in other developing countries. For example, in several countries in our own extended neighborhood, surrogacy is allowed, and there it can create such havens, and it can also result in trafficking of Indian women to such countries. So that is another criticism. Another issue raised by activists is that on one side the government is promoting adoption, and that is absolutely laudable. There is no contesting that. Okay, but when in adoption, the recent guidelines allow adoption even by foreigners and irrespective of marital status of such people. then in that case, disallowing surrogacy on similar grounds seems a little anomalous, and that is a logical criticism that has been levied on this particular bill. So in the light of these pointed criticisms on the Surrogacy Bill 2016, many activists have argued that there could be a calibrated golden mean in between. Rather than completely banning or putting a blanket ban, there could be a calibrated set of regulations which ensure that the rights of the commissioning parents, the surrogate woman, as well as the unborn child are not violated. And many such suggestions have come forth in the newspapers recently. I have listed them down on the screen for you. So friends, that was regarding the Surrogacy Bill 2016 and the debates therein. I hope you found this particular video useful. Do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You can follow it on YouTube, as well as we can connect on Facebook and other means. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.